ask us, especially Joseph Fazio from the Ocala, any questions you want about OSU versus OSU, because he's getting on not one, not two, not three, but like 6 planes to get to Portland to drive to Corvallis. But you are going to be there. That's exciting. Have you ever been to the West Coast, Oregon?
I have never been west of Stillwater. It's going to be a good trip.
It's really not that bad. You can just drive out here and just go a little bit west. There's no
bit.
barriers out there, Fazio.
Yeah.
There's no barriers. But
Yeah.
anyways, that's going to be a fun trip. I'm glad you're getting to go. Obviously, reporting for the Ocala, so that's going to be a great experience. So it is the West Coast. It is 7:30 local time, a 9:30 kickoff here in Stillwater. Is there a reason to be worried if you're Mike Gundy and the Cowboys? Do you get a little bit of a gut feeling that this might go bad, or what's your feelings on this game one?
If we're talking typical Oklahoma State football, I'd say there's no reason to be worried. The only thing that makes me worried is the quarterback battle. We'll probably talk about that a lot.
Yeah.
But Drew Brown, Spencer Sanders, we've never seen them in a game. Well, we've seen Drew Brown play one game when he did one handoff.
Right. Won him a bowl game, right? I agree with you. Like, that's kind of the thing for me. They have Oregon State obviously has some things going for them, not a lot. But I'm more worried about the team traveling, not knowing who their guy is, knocking a guy out of rhythm, or both of them knowing that they're not, even if they play well, the other guy's going to have to get some time as well. How do you focus on that if you're an athlete? You're zoned in, you're wanting to win the football game, and you got to worry about, even if I throw a touchdown pass here, I might be taken out. That's what worries me.
That is a big worry. To be honest, when I talk to Gundy, he says that Drew Brown and Spencer Sanders are basically best friends, which when you're in a QB battle, that's the best thing you can ask for. Because doesn't matter what happens. You can throw a touchdown, you throw an interception, the other guy's still going to be playing. And you just have to deal with that. If you're the better man, you expect to be starting against McNeese State, but that's what this game is for.
There's no QB1, but who's QB like 0.5 that's going to take that first snap under center?
Spencer Sanders.
So you think Spencer's going to be the first guy to jog out there and take snap number one?
You can't sit a Mr. Texas football, no matter what.
I don't know if you know Zachary Lancaster, but I'm sure he would love. He works with Robert Allen at 247. I mean, he would love that. He's a big Spencer Sanders guy. You're the first person, honestly, that I've heard say that. I think Drew's going to get the first start. You're the first guy. Is there a reason that you think that way, or just a gut feeling?
I feel like we're at this point where Gundy needs to know if Spencer Sanders isn't the first person out on the field, he will transfer. And I have no doubt in my mind that Spencer will transfer if he doesn't become the outright starter at some point.
But say, at least in a lot of people's mind, it's going to be both quarterbacks, 1, 2, 3, and then when you go to Texas, Big 12 play, we're finally playing the big bad boys in college football. They need to have their guy. So, do you think it'll be play? Spencer will get the job, and then it's all roses, or if he's just not the guy, at least going out there first in Oregon State, it's time to pull the plug. Like, how much of a leash do you think he's given Gundy essentially to give him that opportunity?
The leash is honestly as close as it can be, because he sat out a year for Cornelius to play, which all for Cornelius, that's good. But I feel like Spencer Sanders should have played last year. Sitting 3.5 years is a lot for a backup quarterback. And Cornelius deserved to play. I don't know if that was at Oklahoma State.
Well, yeah, thank you for that, because I agree with you. And you can tell me where you disagree, but I was in the line of thinking where Cornelius had great stats. It was fun. He won some big-time games. But when you have 3 10-win seasons in a row, and you drop off to a 7-win season and have to limp to a bowl, and you lose to a bad Kansas State team, you don't perform well. You win by 20, but you don't play great at Kansas. And TCU, Grayson Muhlstein beats you. What is that? I get the defense was historically bad, but all that being said, all those things we went through with Cornelius, for what? For what? Let the kids play. Like, Drew Brown is going to be here. I mean, come on. Like, And that's the thing with Drew Brown. If he plays now, for what? What's next season? Like, if Spencer's not ready, don't play him. But if he's anywhere close, get the kid on the field, because if he's the future, you've got to find out, but he's got eligibility. If he's going to be good here, imagine him in 2 years. That's the thing for me. It's like, we didn't gain anything by starting Taylor Cornelius.
You know, when you talk about you didn't gain anything by starting Taylor Cornelius, you don't lose anything by benching Drew Brown either. He's in campus. He's in class. He can't transfer anymore. So if you start Spencer Sanders, yeah, there will probably be some bad blood from Gundy and Brown. But it's just, I honestly say with a firm 100% that Spencer Sanders is the better quarterback.
Well, Joseph, I'm going to be honest with you. I wasn't going to turn on that game on Friday night and be thinking about you on the first snap, but I will now, because I'm going to be intently watching, and you'll be there. So it's going to be fun to see who jogs out there first, because you were the first person that told me Spencer will be the first one out. I think it's going to be Drew, just for how Gundy kind of gives those people an opportunity when they've transferred and they've done so much. But you could say, I mean, Spencer setting was, just as noble as what Drew Brown did. So it'll be interesting to see. But they're both going to play, obviously, Friday night. That defense that I talked about, historically bad last year. It's year 2 for Jim Knowles. It got better when they simplified things last year in the playbook. You've got your corners. You've got a nice secondary. The defensive line seems to be the biggest question mark. But going up against Oregon State, where their strength is their offensive line, their strength is their running back, how does Jim Knowles and Oklahoma State stop that offensive line and running attack?
The defensive line is pretty young. I don't think it will be that bad as many people think it is, but it will be a learning game for the defensive line. The running game for Oregon State is better than most teams. But will that be bad for defensive line? I don't think so. Brock Martin, he's going to have a breakout year on defensive line at defensive end. Eamon Ogbongbemiga, he's a linebacker, but he can move into that defensive end slot. He's going to have a good year. And I don't think it's, they went 2-10 last year. I don't think it's going to be as much of a challenge. People think they're still going to put some points on the board. It's not going to be a shutout. But is it going to be a blowout? Honestly, yes.
You think so? Man, Fazio's kind of throwing me for a loop here. So you're going blowout. The thing for me, and I guess I have a little bit of PTSD from last year, as probably a lot of people that follow the program do. It's not a big-time game, at least with the national scope. They're, 15-point favorites, 12-point favorites. They're double-digit favorites going into Corvallis. It's a 9:30 game. That's just what worries me. Gundy at Big 12 Media Days did talk about the discipline with the football team, getting things right in the film room, practice, cleaning up the penalties, this and that. If that's in full effect, I don't think there's reason to be worried. But if you're Oregon State, there's nobody in the world that would not be playing the underdog card if you're Oregon State. You're the lesser OSU. No one believes in you. You're coming off a 2-win season that was not very impressive, not a lot of highs. You're returning 7 offensive starters, 7 defensive, 3 on special teams. That really doesn't matter. But you're getting over half of your starters back, and most of them on defense. Can you play that underdog card enough to beat Oklahoma State? I don't know.
15-point underdogs, it has happened. We talk about like Appalachian State against Michigan. This isn't Appalachian State.
Yeah, I mean, it's bad when you're saying a Power 5 team. It's like, yeah, they're no App State. And I agree with you. Like, 2-10, they've been all over the place. I mean, Jonathan Smith has had some success as an offensive coordinator, especially up at the University of Washington. Comes over. They were better last year offensively. They did set some Pac-12, first place in some categories in the Pac-12. But most of their efficiency was in the hundreds ranked in the FBS. Defensively, same thing, and the Cowboys were as well. Obviously, top of a lot of offensive categories as the Cowboys are. But in these game notes, which I might add, I'm not taking shots at Oregon State Athletic Department, but there is not a lot of context here. There is not a lot of stuff to find. And you can go find the research, but some of the stuff in these game notes, I mean, I don't know why it's here.
I mean, please remind me, how big was Oklahoma State's game notes?
41 pages.
Mm-hmm. And this is
12.
12.
I know because I printed them off.
Yeah.
I had to wait for 41 pages to print.
3 pages of rosters.
Yeah, there's nothing much there in context, and unfortunately, I guess that might also be a little bit, even though it's just pages, it kind of tells a little bit of context of what each has for this game. It seems like Oklahoma State is at least focused in, and they're really prepared for this because they know that this can either A, be the launching point for maybe a good season. Of course, we'll have that quarterback problem all year long, or if they might be either maybe a little underprepared, still trying to figure things out, Oregon State might be able to jump Oklahoma State. But that's going to be a major if Mike Gundy and them did not prepare properly. That's going to be the major if. But I think Oklahoma State, I think they're going to have a great outing against Oregon State. I think Oklahoma State's going to do great.
Well, I think the message from Mike Gundy is pretty simple.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go get on a plane. We're going to go out west. It's going to be uncomfortable. I mean, Oklahoma State's not staying in a bad hotel. Let's be honest. They're not. It's not going to be super uncomfortable. But you're away from home. The time's going to be a little off. But just as much as Oregon State's playing the underdog card, you should do the same if you're Mike Gundy. Last year sucked, boys. You got your opportunity to let all the frustration, all the talk of last year, and open a can of you-know-what on Oregon State. And for me, and maybe it's the wrong message, but Oregon State is lesser than you. Oregon State, and by the way, 247 Oregon State's page called Oklahoma State a historic powerhouse. So that's how Oregon State's kind of viewing, that look right there. In the last decade, absolutely a national brand, a powerhouse, I guess. If you're Oregon State, Oklahoma State's a powerhouse. But play that card that they are the underdogs. You should beat them. And if you're going to let those guys beat you in week 1, we have problems. That's the message I would send to Oklahoma State. You want to have a quiet confidence. You want to have a quiet arrogance and know that you can win this football game. But Oregon State believes they can win the football game. Whether that's realistic or not, I think you should respect a quarterback, coming back. That he's a redshirt senior. He's been kind of a journeyman of sorts. Jake Luton, I mean, stats aren't unreal. The offensive line is a strength for them, but it is second year for Jonathan Smith. He's an Oregon State alumni. It feels like they right now are where Oklahoma State was in 2005 with Mike Gundy, and he got things rolling pretty quick. I don't know if Jonathan Smith can do that, but a year or two, it's a nice starting point, a nice trajectory to open up against a Power 5 opponent in Oklahoma State and try and prove yourself.
We got to be honest. Not every coach has success at the start. John Smith, 2-10, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
Very bad.
To be honest, it can only go up.
Well,
unless you go 1
and
11. I highly doubt that. They did beat Hawaii and Colorado last year. I think they can do that again. But I want to like them. I really do.
Yeah.
I want to like the underdog, even though as a Boston sports fan, we've never been the underdog.
Oh, you Boston people really are something, aren't you, Joseph? Yeah. The Red Sox are still always the underdog against the Yankees because, 27 World Championships. So, I mean, they are the underdogs there. So, I will give that one to you. But the Oklahoma State Cowboys there should be zero reason. Even if it's a close game, fine. But there is no reason they should lose this football game. They've got a more experienced head coach. Although they're debuting Jim Knowles in his second year, Sean Gleason in his first, and a new offensive line coach. The culture at Oklahoma State and the winning that Mike Gundy has done here should prevail over a second year Jonathan Smith, even though he's an alumnus of Oregon State, I guess I should say, and in the same shoes as Mike Gundy in 2006. The big boys should win. Like, the better team should win this football game. There's no excuses otherwise.
Let's go back to Sean Gleason. I truly believe that one day Sean Gleason will be a head coach. Let me ask you guys, do you know what NFL coach called Sean Gleason asking him to join his team?
Was it Bill Belichick?
Cliff Kingsbury.
Oh.
He wanted him on his team. I don't know if it's as his OC, it could well be. But when you have NFL coaches scouting you out, you're doing something good. And he did pretty well at Princeton. Let's be honest. 10-0 last season. One of the best teams in FBS, best offense. I really think that he brought his talents to Oklahoma State, and he will do good things for a team.
I'm just going to run through a list of questions here on this Oklahoma State segment. Will he be more successful as an offensive coordinator at Oklahoma State than Mike Yurcich? And those are big shoes to fill.
Now,
just his career here. You think he'll be here as long? Do you think they will have the repeated success that they did under Yurcich, under Gleason?
He had short stints at Fairleigh Dickinson, Princeton. I think he's going to have a long career here at Oklahoma State, and I think he's going to be better than Yurcich.
Ooh, man, Fazio's coming in here swinging every Tuesday. I'm expecting just the haymakers from Fazio on Oklahoma State football. Record this year.
It's going to be in our Ocali football preseason paper. I believe I put them at 8-4.
Losses to probably the OU, Texas, Iowa State, Baylor.
Iowa State. I think I put them. I did put them at Baylor. They're going to lose to Baylor, which, it's less than unlikely that it will be a blowout. It will definitely be a close game, but I think Baylor has them.
Well, I think there's so much uncertainty. You can look at it and say they could be anywhere from 7-5 to 10-2. Like these seem to be the years where Mike Gundy just kind of does something ridiculous, and you never see what they do coming, and probably win the games that they're supposed to win and pulls off the upsets, which was the difference maker in last year's results. So you're going 8-4. Score Friday night in Corvallis. OSU's going to win, by the way.
I don't know if you guys are going to like this. 55-17.
That's a lot of points for guys running two quarterbacks. 55-17, OSU. Oklahoma State, I assume you're the Cowboys in a blowout. I'm going to save mine for Thursday for the show. I will get back to you with my prediction on Thursday, so we'll see what happens. But, man, you gave me a lot of good stuff tonight because I really was not I was expecting the classic almost answer now. Yeah, Drew Brown will start. It'll be Roses. Everything will be fine. It'll be a close game. No, you came in here with Spencer Sanders for the win, 55-17. I'm all in. I'm all in on it. So we will take our first phone call of the night. Go ahead. You're on Last Call Triple Play Sports Radio.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I got a little worry about this game. It shouldn't be, but we got great running backs at offense, and we got unproven quarterbacks, which they should be good. But from what I understand, I think Robert mentioned it the other day, that we've got 5 offensive linemen that have never started a Division I ball game, and that kind of scares me.
Well,
so I want your opinion on it, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Hey, we always appreciate the phone call. And the depth chart came out here, what? Was it yesterday or today?
Friday, actually. I was at Gundy's presser Friday, and the depth chart came out. Yeah,
so I'm going to try and pull up the offensive lineman here on the depth chart. But, I mean, it is a worry, and I truly do mean this, Oklahoma State is more talented at just about every position than Oregon State. The coaching staff is much of the same. Like, they are Oklahoma State, even though you factor out the inexperience of an offensive line and the quarterback situation, I get to worry too because I'm a worrier. Like, I'll talk myself into Oregon State being able to make it 55-17, vice versa of what you were saying. I will talk myself into that by Friday. So I'm a worrier too. But you do have to drop comfort in the fact that they're going to be okay because they're more talented. And Johnny Wilson, he was a center last year. He started. You got Marcus Keys, who have played a reasonable amount of snaps. You do have Dylan Galloway, who's a redshirt junior. But Marcus Keys and Johnny Wilson have played a decent amount of snaps, along with Tevin Jenkins as well. So you've got 2 redshirt seniors in Johnny Wilson and Tevin Jenkins. You've got Marcus Keys. So one of the shockers, though, for me was that Ry Schneider was number 2 on the depth chart at right guard. So Bryce Bray will get the start there. Marcus Keys at left guard. You've got Johnny Wilson under center, Dylan Galloway at left tackle again, and Tevin Jenkins at right tackle. So you've got some guys that have played some meaningful snaps, especially Johnny Wilson, who is a leader of the team, likes metal music, by the way, that you could read that in the Ocali. I mean, they're going to be, okay, you just have to take solace in the fact that Oklahoma State is more talented across the board at just about every position than Oregon State.
You know, I mean, everyone wants to say, yeah, they're the underdogs. But like you said, they're better at every position. I'll even go as say that our backup running backs are better than their starting running backs. We haven't talked about DeAndre Glass, 4-star running back freshman year. He's better than any of OSU, as I mean, Oregon
OSU.
State. Yeah, that's that battle. Oregon State's running backs. I mean, but Chuba Hubbard, he was a track star in high school, one of the best football players coming out of Canada his year. He's on the Maxwell watch list. I don't think he'll win it. There's a lot of good players on that watch list, but there's no way that Oregon State's defensive line is stopping Chuba Hubbard.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, the main thing is just, if we get popped in the mouth, will we come back? Because a lot of last season, whenever we got popped in the mouth, we just folded like a chair. We ended up just packing it in, and things have happened like
when
that.
the lightweights threw a punch. When the heavyweights threw a punch, they punched back.
Right.
Which was the confusing part.
Yeah, we're all hoping right now that if they get punched back by a lightweight, this is a very lightweight. This is like a featherweight right now.
Well, I wouldn't say. I mean, they're a power.
I'd call McNeese Stale a featherweight.
I mean, it would probably come off as disrespect to Oregon State, but when you go 2-10, and I mean, they have the same history football wise as Oklahoma State. They just haven't found their Mike Gundy, and they never had Barry Sanders.
Right.
Outside of that, I mean, nationally, Oklahoma State's a brand now, and some people have noticed the success that Mike Gundy has had, but largely historically, Oklahoma State's not a great football program. I mean, they weren't over 500 until Mike Gundy took over. So, do they have their Mike Gundy and Jonathan Smith? I don't know, but you can't completely rule that out.
Yeah, it's mainly just like I was saying. The reason I was saying that is because within this decade, we've been one of the bigger teams in the NCAA, and for us right now, at least at this point, it feels like a featherweight. But if something could happen, because there's a chance that they try to do something like a lot of teams did to us last year, they might punch us in the mouth. It's basically, do we have this thing that we've been touting all summer long, that we have the discipline to if that happens to us, to go back out there and pop them right back in the mouth and not fold in the most unopportune time.
Yeah, and to those, obviously, the offensive line points. Marcus Keys has started 37 games. Obviously, Johnny Wilson was the leader on the team, 22 games over the past 2 seasons. So there is some experience on the offensive line Oregon State has a talented defensive line. Their offensive line has quite a bit of experience as well. That's probably more so of a battle you want to pay attention to. And Dylan Galloway started 21 games. So you have quite a bit of experience on the offensive line, especially Johnny Wilson going left. You do have Bryce Bray, who is a redshirt freshman. That is going to be one to look as well, along with Tevin Jenkins, who's a redshirt junior. But they do have some experience on this offensive line, as does Oregon State. So the Oregon State offensive line versus OSU defensive line is probably more so of a battle than their defensive line versus the Cowboys offensive line. But that is something to pay attention to. One guy this season that is kind of, you mentioned Glass, but is there anyone else on the team, you can go with him if you would like, that's flying under the radar that here at the end of December when we're talking about a full game and hopefully a bowl game for the Cowboys, was a playmaker that no one really saw?
He's not he is a playmaker. But I don't know if you guys noticed that Malcolm Rodriguez has actually changed to a linebacker.
I did. I was going to ask you about that.
When we talk about Malcolm Rodriguez as a linebacker, I'm all for it. Gundy said he's at 212 to 215. He would rather have him at 225 with that added weight. But honestly, I think 215 is pretty solid. I don't know if you guys notice. It's a position called striker. It's a hybrid of a defensive back and a linebacker. Malcolm Rodriguez fits that to a T. Once they go into those Big 12 teams where wide receivers control the team, basically, when we get to that Texas and Oklahoma, if you line Malcolm Rodriguez against those slot receivers, he's going to shut him down.
Yeah, he was one of those guys where last year people were frustrated at times with the defense as a whole, which was understandable. It's the worst defense Oklahoma State's ever had. But you had to realize there was guys that Malcolm Rodriguez, he was playing high school football a year before. And then he gets dropped, Jim Knowles, who is an Ivy League guy, in a very complex defense in a 4-2-5. There was a lot of stuff to learn. And he was playing at McAllister, or Wagner, that was a big...
No, he was a quarterback.
Yeah, that was a huge jump for Malcolm Rodriguez, and he played well. And you throw in going from high school to college football, you throw all that in. Oh, yeah, Alan Bowman, Brock Purdy, chasing Kyler Murray around. Like, it's not easy to come in this conference and just play defense. So it's got to be better from Jim Knowles, and there is some inexperience up front. But you got to be really comfortable with that secondary. They're going to give up big plays because you're in the Big 12. Like,
it's
they're going
Big
to,
12.
yeah, they're going to give up points. It's going to happen. But is it going to be better than last year, especially in that secondary? Absolutely.
I mean, that's the best thing Mike Gundy can hope for. I truly don't believe that last season's team is a representative of this season's team. They got better. When we talk about that win with discipline aspect, Mike Gundy lives that to a T. He has 6 shirts that he told me. He switches them out every day that says win with discipline. He's had all of his coordinators, staff, the trainers wear win with discipline shirts. And he said if they don't have that discipline, they're running. They have run probably hundreds of suicides this fall practice because he wants to ingrain in their head that they need to play with discipline. And discipline means not missing assignments and unnecessary penalties. Those are 2 big things that cost them last season.
Yeah, Oklahoma State had like a proverbial gun in their hand just shooting themselves in the foot like all the time last year. AJ Green, the Baylor game. I mean, they just made some costly mistakes he talked about that at Big 12 Media Days, and that was kind of where I was going earlier with can Oklahoma State and Mike Gundy sell the argument to themselves that we're better than this? Because Oklahoma State fans want to be treated like a national powerhouse, whether they've earned that right or not. Oklahoma State fans under Mike Gundy, the success in 2011, the 10-win seasons, the only thing that hasn't gone Mike Gundy's way is beating OU. I mean, he shouldn't be beating Texas, and he is. The only thing is not being able to beat OU. So they want the credit of being a national powerhouse. When Ohio State or an OU, if they were going to Corvallis, they know they're going to win. That's the history. That's the thought process in the program. Can Mike Gundy sell themselves where you still have to be disciplined, you have to be smart, you have to be physical? We're going to win this football game if we do all those 3 of those things. Can they sell themselves on that? I think they can.
I mean, yeah. I mean, talking to at media day, player availability, coach availability, he really seems like he sold me personally. I don't know about other members of the media, but he's shown me and the other players that they're going to play discipline. When we talk about unnecessary penalties, they took out a full play because Tylan Wallace could get ejected from it. I don't know if you guys know. He just took it.
Crackback block.
Yeah, the crackback block. He just took it out of the playbook. I mean, and there are people saying, well, I mean, it's one of the best players that Tylan Wallace has. But yeah, he's going to get kicked out if he does it.
Right, and that's increasingly becoming what refs are looking for. Like, that wasn't his calling card because he was so great last year, but that crackback block got him in trouble. It just seemed about every game last year. And I don't know if it was the Baylor game that he got close to being ejected. They initially ejected him and then overturned it. And that's brilliant because you do set a tone for Tylan Wallace, those things, but that's not what you should be using Tylan Wallace for. You should be using Tylan Wallace to score touchdowns and get first downs. That's what they're going to do. I love that move from Mike Gundy because it's thinking essentially outside the box. We're good enough to move past those things, and that's what you like to see from Mike Gundy here going into week 1.
I mean, yeah. I mean, Mike Gundy is a smart coach. Let's be honest with that. Last season doesn't reflect his career overall as a coach. I think this is a new day for Mike Gundy, and I truly believe he's learned his lesson from last year. No more shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah, and it's, when he talked about that, letting the things go, I thought to myself, why didn't they have this revolution week 5? Like, why didn't they have this talk? That was interesting to me, is why they didn't make this change in the middle of last season. Do you get the sense that there was something going on, or they knew there was going to be changes, or it's because it was kind of an all-for-nothing type season after a certain point? Why didn't they have that discussion then?
You know, Gundy loves loyalty. When we talk about Taylor Cornelius, 3.5 years on the bench, I couldn't sit 3.5 years watching someone else play. I don't know about you guys. I truly believe that's one of the reasons why they won 7-6. Maybe if they did talk week 5, okay, yeah, it's worked out in the non-conference games. The conference games, not so much. Let's try Drew Brown. Let's try Spencer Sanders, because they will be there next year. I think they should have gave them the chance. And, you know, it was last season. We have to deal with what happened last season. But it's a new season. You know, you have 2 really good quarterbacks who've been fighting for the job. And come Friday, we'll see which one's the better quarterback.
Do you think, and I think I know the answer to this question, is there any way they know their starting quarterback, they're just keeping the cards close to the vest until game 1? Like, there's no need to tell anyone, why name a starter? We've gone through all this. Or is it a true of a quarterback battle as Mike Gundy says it is?
You know, when I put them side by side, they're very similar. But you got to look at career attributes. At Denton Ryan, Spencer Sanders was king. He was the king of Texas football that year. When you look at Drew Brown at Hawaii, not so much.
Yeah, came from San Clemente Community College. And no disrespect to the route, but there's a reason for that.
Yeah. You know, I'm honestly 50-50 on that one. I could believe that Gundy knows, because Gundy doesn't want to tell people what they want to hear sometimes. You know, we haven't talked to Spencer Sanders or Drew Brown since the fan day. I've wanted to talk to Spencer Sanders this whole time. I would love to write stories on him, get his idea of how the season's going to go. But Gundy wants to keep people at arm's length. And telling who will start at quarterback is one of those things. So I'm honestly 50-50. I wouldn't be surprised if he actually doesn't know who he wants to start, and he needs that game to find out. For me, I believe Spencer Sanders is that guy. But I mean, I'm not a coach that makes $5 million a year. He knows more than me.
Right.
I'm just a junior in college writing sports.
Yeah, so, I mean, it is a big-time decision, so it's going to be interesting. Have fun on your trip to Oregon. Obviously, hopefully we can talk to you next week. You're going 55-17. I've got it written down, so I'm going to hold you to that 8-4. We look forward to having you on a lot more during the football season. Joseph Fazio from the Ocala. We appreciate you, man.